Hello everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Indexer Office Hours. Today is the 4th of November, and this is Indexer Office Hours 232. Thank you for posting the agenda there in the chat, Juan. If anyone wants to see the agenda, feel free to check the chat there. For anyone who is new to Indexer Office Hours, this is the town square where graph ecosystem participants come together and discuss the most important and relevant topics for indexers. As always, this is a conversation and we do love participation, so feel free to get involved in today's conversation via voice or text. If you are having any challenges, let me know. I will get that sorted for you via the admin privileges that have been bestowed upon me. With great power comes great responsibility. As a reminder, this session is going to be recorded and posted onto public channels like YouTube. So if you are concerned about privacy, please bear that in mind. And with that, let's get into today's agenda. So as always, I'm going to hand over to Carlos for our regularly scheduled repo watch section.
Hello everyone and welcome back. So this week, with the announcement of the upcoming hard fork for Ethereum mainnet for Fusaka, we have a churn of releases. They're mostly revolving around releasing stable versions, now with the date settled in for the hard fork, and that means there's a bunch of releases. So starting from the top, we have Aragon 3.2.2. We have from Streaming Fest the Polygon 2.3.4, Firehose 3.0. We have a new GET release as well, patch version 1.16.7. Red has a new patch version as well, 1.8.3. And we have a bunch of consensus layers clients as well. That includes Prism, Teku, Nimbus, and Lighthouse version 8 has been released stable now. We've probably been running it on testnets before, so those are all now including the scheduled dates for the hard forks. And you still have some time to upgrade, but still you should be upgrading before December. On the graph stack, we have no new releases this week. Also, no new chart releases on Launchpad, but you should expect that all of these very recent releases, most of them came out over the last 2 days, should see updated charts along the following week. And that covers it for this week. So I'm handing off for Protocol Watch to Juan, as usual.
Thanks, Carlos. Okay, starting with Protocol Watch, as always, we start with forum governance. We have one update there, which is we're introducing the new council member, which is Derek Mayer, or as you probably all know him from Data Nexus, Derek from Data Nexus. So yes, welcome to the council and congratulations. Next up, we have forum research. We have some of the core dev updates that includes Edge and Nodes updates, semiotic and GraphOps. As always, these updates are pretty lengthy. Each of the teams will be updating on all of the things that they've been doing the past months. So if you're interested in any of those, they are all linked in the agenda. Then we have, for the contract repository, only one single PR, which is for registering the new dispute manager related to the Horizon update for Arbitrum Sepolia, if I'm not mistaken. And for the network subgraphs, we do have, we had a small update last week, which was essentially the Arbitrum Sepolia Horizon update coming live. But we found a few issues which were later fixed between yesterday and today. And now it should be live, the latest version, which is 2.0.3, which contains some fixes to the crashes that we were seeing in Arbitrum Sepolia for Horizon. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm going to be handing over to Kate now.
Thanks, Juan. Pretty similar in terms of updates. We do have rewards live now for Chapel, Sepolia, and Unichain, and I believe that 𝗨𝗀𝗀𝗀 is working on coordinating having folks from the Unichain team come to speak to us on IOH. So we'll keep you posted on that. They seemed interested, so hopefully we get that sometime soon. And in terms of we did send out a notice that indexing rewards would be deprecated for Mode, Blast, and Fuse. I believe. Yes. and Studio. We did edit that message, Matthew, that we had spoke of about the indexing rewards ending, but indexers still being able to support chains if they choose to, and get query fees, and also the possibility of independent indexer support for some of these chains or users on these chains, and we're continuing to pursue that. And so that is something that matters a lot to us, and that is something that we're continuing to communicate and work with for these users. So I'll keep you posted on that. And then in terms of the CIP, we just got data from last month, so I do have a potential chain that I'm looking at, but I've spoken too soon about this previously, so I will keep you posted. But I want to review a few things, and I will let you know as soon as possible if we get started on a new chain soon. Thanks, everyone.
Amazing. Thank you all for your updates there. I really do appreciate it. Okay, amazing. Now we have the famous Slim, who's going to be with us, giving us a series of updates. And the first one is Horizon. So without further ado, feel free to take it away, Sim.
Horizon will be next week together with Rio. Sorry. Today that will be Thomas, but I can just give a preview that he will be jumping on this IOH next week to make a CTA to all indexes, as you will have to take action as we start rolling out Horizon. But that will be next week, and you'll still have some weeks to make the necessary changes there. As for my session, it will only be about the indexer feedback report that we started going through a couple of sessions ago, 3 sessions ago. And yeah, I can, without further ado, I can share my screen and we can get started. Just to set context, if there's anyone that wasn't on the first session, we did get some extensive feedback from indexers earlier this year. I compiled it into a report, and we are going item by item to look at current and upcoming initiatives that we are having to mitigate some of the issues, or continuing to double down on things that are working well. And I think last time we started talking about the indexer pain points. Able to remember how far we got? Did we get through? I think we got through all of the indexer pain points, or did we?
No, I think we stopped at like infrastructure costs and support and expertise gaps. We were like roughly around there, so maybe we pick up from there.
Yeah, and before I continue, I would just like to double down on what Abel always likes to say, that it's a conversation, and we love participation. No one here is too little of an indexer, too much of a core team member, or too little of a community member to join into the conversation. But love for this to be like an active discussion around each point, and just a starting point to explore new ideas of how we can mitigate some of these pain points. And yeah, so feel free to unmute your mic at any time and join. So I think the next, so we did cover some of them in an earlier IO8, so I'll start with documentation problems. Specifically, a lot of indexes have mentioned documentation when it comes to Firehose, and also substreams. I know is quite painful, knowing from working with it myself as well. That and that is something that we do want to improve, especially as we are making an effort to bring Firehose and substreams to the network. That will be coming up later, and it's been quite a few factors that have been contributing to Firehose and substreams not being on the network, and also not having proper documentation. One being simply as well that it is we're exploring options where it will be harder for other entities, other protocols to simply control control the value proposition of the graph, and yeah, our focus has been a lot around that as well, and we hope to have a lot more to share over the coming months on that side. But so this is being worked on. It will probably not be something for Q4, but Q1 we do hope to have some better documentation for both Firehose and substreams. If there's other documentation as well, I think the challenge here is that last I worked with indexer documentation, it was spread across the indexer repo from various like release notes in the indexer and graph node repo, and the actual documentation. Is that still as much of an issue? It's been a long time since I went back and read the documentation. Is it still like very spread and like incomplete? Anyone that have any experience with it? We can probably move on. I'm not sure how many here are like looking at the indexes that are participating. I think it's been quite a few years since all of you started, so you might have not gone back to look at the current docs. But I know Firehose and substreams do need better documentation. So database management complexity is, so these are more towards like automation, like for example, building the indices for subgraphs, migration backups. Do we have any idea of like specific features that you would like to improve on, and how they could be improved? Has there been any issues opened? Oh, give me a second.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not sure who should take care of that. I mean, running the databases for GraphNode is extremely complex. I mean, they're very large. If you have multiple shards, that increases the complexity a lot. But that's not really specific to GraphNode or the graph. So I think it's more a question of for the indexers to get. I think it's more a question of using generic tools or generic Postgres tools or come up with your own scripting. It's not necessarily something that Graph should be focusing on, in my opinion. Others than I think maybe among ourselves we could maybe share our experience and share some tools and some ideas how to manage that. But I don't think that's a graph node problem per se.
Yeah. But some of them is also related to, it's not just the DB, right? Like it's also like, for example, migrating is not just about moving the data, but also registering the subgraph in your indexer stack, right? So it's hard to use like off-shelf solutions, or am I misunderstanding what you're saying?
Well, there are a few things like moving subgraphs, copying, and for that, we need proper supporting graph node, and I think it's, apart from maybe some small issues, I think it's generally working. I was thinking more about things like running backups or managing the size or monitoring the Postgres instances themselves. That requires quite a bit of work.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an aspect where we could be improving, and I think we mentioned it in another way. So maybe it's somewhere else in your document. There's the whole thing about managing indexes and performance in general. That requires a lot of manual intervention. Maybe that's something GraphNode could be doing a little more on its own. Maybe that's where maybe the focus should be.
Yeah. I would love if if indexes could work with me on finding like some specific details of what that could look like, because I think that the most of the GraphNode team are not familiar with running an indexer, and vice versa. We do frequently visit this topic in the index experience working group as well, and we do we know that the GraphNode team will have the ability to work on issues that are high priority by the indexer team. The indexer by indexes. So should we try to map out what better tooling could look like, either on this or something else? Like in general, if there's any open issues on the GraphNode repo, or if there's any glaring gaps in tooling and features, I would love for indexes to be more vocal about it and work with me on it, and we can prioritize that in the GraphNode development. But it would probably be something that we get individual sometimes requests, but we don't know if it's something that one indexer would use or 20. So I'm not sure what the best way there, if we can concretize it a little bit and say like exactly what the tool should look like and what it should do, or like features that we should be adding. For example, GraphNode, what should it automate? Like migrating everything between shards or balancing between shards. Or what is, like, for example, what should the GraphNode do automatically? But yeah, if anyone of, I see there was quite a few people that mentioned this. Well, so if anyone has any ideas, feel free to reach out. On the Firehose, I will not circle back to that. I think we already covered that a bit. And the last is tooling gaps on monitoring, troubleshooting, performance metrics, allocation management. So I know there's quite a few tools in the ecosystem. What are people using? Is it indexer tools by Vincent? Is it mostly self-managed? What is it? Some tools that you have created yourself? What are people using today?
I'm not sure if these are connected to what we're discussing, Slim, but there's a question in here from Moonboy.
I wonder if that is related to. I see he's posting earlier as well, so I think he's having a conversation with Carlos. Yeah. Side quest. But yeah, regarding tooling, I know there's quite a few different tools that have been built. InfoDAO also have another tool that was like 90% completed, and then we weren't sure. We didn't bring it over the finish line as well as it could be used for automatic allocation management, and we would love to explore if there's like exactly what the toolings could look like. Like this was like automatic allocations, allocation management based on strategies. Say that you always want to be allocated towards the 100 most query giving subgraphs on the change you have given, and also automatically index like 300 small and 100 big subgraphs. So like you could set your own strategies, and you would automatically be indexing and allocating to them based on those strategies. But we'd love to get some input on what other tooling people are using, and if it is an actual pain point, would people appreciate more automatic allocation management? Especially with upcoming dips, it might be something that we want to move towards.
See, Mark Andre is typing, so I'm assuming there's something coming, and same for Matthew as well. There's a question there from Matthew saying, dips will need a new allocation manager, question mark.
Dips, since dips will need a new indexer service that does the negotiation on behalf of the indexer. And with that, it adds another layer of complexity to being an indexer, because already we are looking at indexing rewards, we are looking at query fees, we are looking at impact, we're looking at just the gut feeling of like, will this be another painful subgraph to index that we will need to continuously monitor and roll back. And now there's also the potential for dips agreements. So I think we need to look into better automation at that point. And I'm wondering, so I'm wondering exactly how that will look like together with all of the other factors. Maybe this is something that we should do together with dips once that comes, and just sit down with a group of indexers that are already developing or using tooling, and see what we can like take the best of each of them and try to get like one tool that would have all of the features that we need. I think that could be like worthwhile use of our time. We will have some developer time to develop it as well, but we would need some heavy guidance from indexes that would be using it. Mark Andre is typing that he's using a custom script, not a lot of manual, and a lot of manual verifications. and that some indexes have a lot of trouble coming up with a proper allocation plan. I'm not sure either. Like, I know there's quite a few solid tools available. Is there anyone that would be interested in probably not this year, but early next year, sit down and like work through tooling and see what tooling, like where would we like the tooling to go, especially with dips? Yeah, Mark Andreas he says like it will all be automated. It will have to be automated, but there could still be some options there, and so April, yeah, I see you mentioned like a dedicated IO8 session. I'm just concerned if there's not enough participation as we brainstorm. Maybe it would be better to have an off and async coordination where people add feature requests and maybe rate them, and then once we have a few feature requests, we could bring it and talk about it on IO8. Because I just fear we will be just asking the question like what features would you like to see, and then we don't really get into a discussion because it's kind of hard to to map out what a product could look like just on the spot on a public call.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, you could do it in a public channel, and let people voice feature requests and throw things back and forth as well. Well, we can move on, but I would like to go back to this. This is something that has been mentioned by enough indexes that feel that it is a pain point to manually manage allocations, that especially with the upcoming dips, we probably want to revisit and make things easier, especially make it so that that indexes don't need to do a lot to meet the baseline. So also with the upcoming rewards eligibility oracle being deployed, we will be expecting indexes to start serving queries on more subgraphs, and with that as well, we do want to make it easier for indexes to do so as well. It's a win-win. Indexes get that automated, and the network benefits because we don't need indexes to manually select and choose which subgraphs to index based on n factors. So we can go over to the actual juicy part of the indexer feedback report. I asked indexes to give feedback on foundation communication, core dev engagement, protocol inclusiveness, financial viability, indexer community, and overall indexer experience. Starting up with the most negative topic, which was the foundation transparency and roadmap. That's a place where we in the foundation clearly have a lot of room to grow. And I really appreciate again the honesty and candidness in the feedback that we received. Communication in isolation was pretty well rated. Core dev engagement, again, poorly rated. Inclusiveness, towards neutral, I would say, but positive. Financial viability, well, this was at when GRT was around like 9 to 10 cents. So I'm not sure what this this will look like right now, but it will probably not be any better. Index the community. Well, you rated yourself pretty high, so you patted yourself on the back. We patted ourselves on the back. I would say, and overall index experience is also still positive, mainly due to particle inclusiveness, communication, and an indexer community. So. Speaking of that, we can start by looking into the indexer feedback in details. I have omitted in the detail sections. I've omitted communication and overall index experience, as I've been taking all of that feedback and putting it into like its bucket. Communication was either on core dev communication or foundation communication and so on. So. And same with like the overall index experience. Indexes gave some detailed feedback about that as well. I put that in under the other categories. And similarly, we have like a section on each of them. The vast majority of respondents mentioned that indexes, well, that they don't see a clear roadmap with milestones and clarity. And I'm wondering, I guess that is in general for the graph as a whole, or is it mostly towards like an indexer roadmap, or is it the graph as a whole? Does anyone want to comment on that?
Any thoughts on the question Slim just asked, folks? Love to hear your perspectives. Either or both. There are no roadmaps published anywhere, is the response from Matthew. Any thoughts on that, Slim? The monthly developer calls went away too as well. It's another thing he said.
Yeah. I'm just looking at as people are posting.
Gotcha. Also, it seems major things are being announced under the graph banner, but as an indexer, I'm clueless on what it is and if the graph banner is being. Oh, geez, he just edited that. Okay. Also, it seems major things are being announced under the graph banner, but as an indexer, I'm clueless on what it is and if the graph banner is being flown for W/E. I don't know what that means. New things coming. Why don't we talk about it? Tested it, being involved in it, provided it, economic fiscal discussions about it. You mean like things get announced and you're just like, where did that come from? I didn't know about that. I'm confused. Can you elaborate on that, Vincent? Vince.
Yeah, just the stuff being discussed, I guess, in the Twitterverse about the graph launching new services, but I think we're kind of all unclear whether these are centralized offerings or what they are because they're being flown with the graph banner, and there's these partnerships happening, but I, as an indexer, feel totally clueless. I don't know what it is. Am I going to have a place in this thing being announced? Is it a centralized service and it's eventually going to be brought to an indexer to provide? Is there any role in an indexer to do it? Because if it's being flown with the graph banner, I would assume that there would be community involvement.
That are good questions. On the roadmap, it's been there's some substantial changes to how the graph will look like internally as we develop the graph going forward, and that has also put some major delays in developing and publishing a new roadmap. So that is definitely something that we are feeling both externally and internally. Would love to, would love for us to have a clearer roadmap, and that's not something. There's not really much I can say that other than that's we recognize that as something that indexes want and community want, and we want ourselves as well. So I do definitely get that negative negative feedback, and it's also been an issue previously where we have made a very pretty roadmap, but we haven't really updated what has happened with the things on the roadmap. So
Yeah, and I think even other things besides the announcement, like the graph just announced, the graph will be live on day one with new injective public mainnet.
yeah.
I haven't heard that be discussed once. Like, what do you mean? Why is the graph? That doesn't sound like the graph to me because I don't think a single indexer knows about it.
Yeah, and that is the that is some of the clarifications we are doing with core teams to have a clear distinction between what is the graph, what is core teams that are doing integrations, and we do want to make sure that anything that is being flown under the graph spanner will benefit the graph network in the future. We may still have, like as it is now, Edge does chain integrations, and if we can also have individual indexes. Any indexer can serve a new like EVM chain on the graph and make an individual deal with consumers or chains. But in practice, it's been Edge that has been doing the chain integrations. And when we see sustained volume, a lot of users, a lot of subgraphs being deployed, they would be eligible for indexing rewards. So it's a two-edged sword, right? Like if indexes were involved from day one on new chains, that means that indexing rewards would be spread thinner across more chains. So the cost for running an indexer would be higher, but it would make it so that deals are available in a more, like, how should I say, Edge is the ones that are responsible for the chain integration process. And actually we are looking into ways that we can bring that revenue stream to indexes. I was actually on a call right before this as well, exploring how this could look like. But we need to see how that could look like with in terms of pricing, if it's something that is palatable to indexes. And then we could potentially do a similar integration directly with indexes, where instead of it going to Edge and then once once we have sufficient traction, it goes to the network. It could go to individual indexes that are providing this service, and then to the network. So that is something we are exploring as a pilot program right now, and I do hope that goes well, because that would bring another revenue stream and bring more decentralization to the graph. But it's there's some balance there. If we bring it right to the network, we have more decentralization, but it's more costly for indexes, and it could potentially also, if we do it in a completely wide open way where indexes can bid on providing the service, it could potentially backfire if they are not providing a good enough service. So right now we are doing a pilot, and we may have a handful of indexes supporting chains. But yeah, that's it's a very good point that things that are under the graph panel should benefit the graph network. And it should be clear where the direction is, so that indexers do and others understand, like, what is the path, why was it chosen, why is it built as a centralized service first, and so on. So did that clarify, Vince? Or?
I don't. I just think if the graph is going to take on these things, that it should be done with indexers in partnership or whatever, even if it's a test net. Like, hey guys, we're going to be a launch partner with Injective. We should start testing this. Here's the stuff you need to get up. Here's the fire hose. Here's this. Here's that. Here's how you do all of it. Here's how you plug it in, and then start working towards that. Because the other way around, I think, is just we're just announcing things, and nobody in the community has any idea what's going on. Like, we didn't get a choice in saying we're going to be an official mainnet launch partner. This was just decided and announced, and we also have no idea how that's going to benefit us, how we're going to do it. Everything that follows that. When you're adding a new service.
Yeah,
I can say I do think that this is reflective of Subgraph Studio. I'm not aware that this is anything to do with indexing rewards at this point, but it is confusing with the wording the way it is, Vince. So I do want to validate that as well. I hadn't heard about this myself either, but to your point, what 𝗀𝗀𝗋𝗀 was saying, these are core developer, so it is a little confusing for sure.
Yeah, and that's where I understand where it's coming from, because it would before we see traction, we usually do not bring it directly to the graph network, because it is another, what is Injective, like 48 terabyte. And that is
huge. I do remember it's huge, and I know that, to your point, Vince, we would need some other, it's not an EVM chain, so we would need a different service for that as well.
Yeah, and Firehose only, yes, so exactly. So if we bring it directly, so there's a few options there, right? Like, one is to bring it directly to the network, which would be very costly for indexers to participate in. They could, but they could only serve, like, yeah. So it would be very costly if we enable indexing rewards, and then there's like 2 users that put a lot of curation signal on a handful of subgraphs, and that will be enough that it will skew indexing rewards for the entire rest of the network, right? So these are the kind of situations that we want to avoid, especially if that happens with 20 or 30 or 40 chains. But it should be very clear, a clear upgrade path, and we should make that clear. That's something that I think there is a page, but I don't think it's been circulated widely with, like, the indexer community, and when do we choose to enable indexing rewards for a chain. And the other option is to have a singular provider provide the service until we see that there's traction on the chain, and then bring indexing rewards. And that's where we are looking into a pilot program for other indexers to also support that effort. So, and that would all go through the graph network as well. So all query fees, of course, will go through the graph. And similarly on other things, so we are, with upcoming data services, we have now like a few centralized data services, but we also have a data service that, as you know, have been developing, that we are working directly with a small group of indexers on like shaping the service, shaping the protocol economics, I don't think there's been a lot of updates lately, so I'm going to be making sure we have a little bit more progress there for those of you that are on this call that are on that group as well. Yeah, Matthew is pointing it out as well. Yeah, that's what I think as well. It might be when something is announced that indexes understand it. Currently tweets go out, but no background info is provided. Is this specifically for new chain integrations that 𝗨𝗀𝗻𝗂 is doing, or is it also for other like roadmap items?
Regard, I'm just looking, Matthew. In this regard, in terms of indexer community, I am usually the person who does the messaging in regards to rewards and integrations. So something that hasn't been announced in terms of rewards, yeah, would be more like a private a studio integration or something to that. Because with our program for rewards, we want to make sure that you're ready to support the chain before it goes live, so that you have all your infrastructure ready, especially if we know it's a bigger chain that has longer syncing time, or you may have to adjust some of your infrastructure to support it. So I would assume anything that you shouldn't have to assume, but if it hasn't been communicated, because I know we do really focus on making sure that we give you all the information so that you can be able to act on it and reap the most benefit from it and provide the best service. So yes, I think there has been some confusion about where there is a studio integration versus the full protocol supporting a chain via indexing rewards. So we can definitely take this feedback and talk to our other partners internally at other devs to make sure that comes out more clearly. I agree.
That's also where, like, if you could help me put a finger, like, I don't need to put you on the spot on this call, but if you want, you can share it here, or you can share it directly with me, like some examples, because I don't really follow 𝗨𝗻𝗂's Twitter, to be honest. Like, I'm not very active.
A little on this.
Yeah.
Just that in this case, what they're talking about with the SmartCon, that is something new that hasn't been broadly announced, and that is a different. I don't know, 𝗨𝗀𝗻𝗂, if you want to talk about it more, but yeah, that's a different layout.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah,
and it's less. That is something that that particular service or tool that they're talking about, I think, will have a different path in terms of providers.
we can finally say AMP now, right?
Oh, okay, so, okay.
It's in the post.
I'll let you take the lead on that. Yeah.
It's it's in the title. So this is something that Rodrigo was on this. Ford. Ford was the one joining this call to give a little bit of sneak peek. So we going back to what we talked about on making sure we keep things in the 𝗨𝗻𝗂 ecosystem a little bit more, like we keep some more competitive advantage. We've been a little bit stricter with what information goes out publicly. So Ford did go on this call and alluded to a new data service and was also giving some examples of the benefits of that new data service. And we have also invited a group of 10 indexes, which is around half of the most active indexes on the graph network to a small design team, where they have been able to test and provide feedback on AMP. So it's more that that is something that we haven't been able to share a lot publicly, simply because we want to make sure we keep the competitive advantage as well for the graph. And that is a data service that is being developed with the graph network in mind from day one. That's why we are inviting indexes to provide feedback on it. In the Indexer Design Partners initiative. But I know that there was some. It was a repo was shared. I'm not sure if there's a lot of indexes that were actually running it on their own and testing it. So that's a challenge here as well. If we announce it publicly and there's like 1 or 2 indexes that pay attention to it, and then we lose our competitive advantage over it, then is it worth it? That's where we.
I would also just say that in this case too, the use case and the user in mind, I think that in this case it's being soft launched in a way that reflects that. And so I think, yes, there is a need for, to Urian's point, certain competitive secrecy, because you have to think about the market as well, and there is definitely a benefit then. But with the chain integrations, I can totally see why that is confusing and more confusing. And Urian, you did point out, I remember I was here. We did have Ford on IOH, and we did talk about this, and there have been different users and design partners, but I think we have to also consider the use case and the target user here. I think with the integrations, we can absolutely be clearer, and we can absolutely do a better job of communicating what those mean and where those are coming from. I think those have like a more first hit impact on the indexer community. Does that sound right to you guys? I think with some of these more, they have a particular user base and a particular product market fit. And so there's certain considerations that have to go there. And so I think it's good and important that Ford comes on and talks about it. But I also think, to Urian's point, there has to be a measured level of how you unveil these certain things for certain use cases. But I'm taking that feedback because I do a lot of communication with the indexer community. So I would love to, I'll talk about that with my colleagues for sure. I think when that with Ford, I think, that just depends on the timeline for sure.
Yeah.
Urian.
And that's also important to note there that we did invite anyone to join that team of testers for AMP. So there was the indexes that reached out to me after they were added to the test group. So there is an opportunity, but we also want to ensure that we don't have a lot of like centralized competitors this time around. So it's not ensure, but it does help to ensure that we get the flywheels going of like the network effects, and especially, well, I encourage people to watch the presentation that Rodrigo has. I believe it's going to be public. Yeah, it's going to be tomorrow, November the 5th. But that it will give a better understanding of what it is that we are developing, and specifically like Stake Machine, he posted in the forum about some improvements he would like to see. For example, splitting writing data and storing and reading data, or having a better efficiency in the graph protocol. And AMP does that, for example. So there's a lot of exciting changes to a change of approach to index data with AMP. So encourage people to watch as we will be unveiling more and more of that. And if anyone after this call is curious to join the Indexer Design Partners group, please let me know as well. But it will require an NDA still. So.
Just a quick one. The presentation that you mentioned, where can people check it out when it's out tomorrow on Twitter?
I have to get back to you on that. I'm not sure where it will be posted. So.
Got it. No worries. Yeah, whenever you're ready, just feel free to share.
Yeah.
Matthew saying, I'm interested in what the AMP scalability. Solana has 70 billion transfers.
Yeah. I would love for Leo and Ford to comment directly on the scalability. I just know that the data I've seen so far, it's way more scalable. Way more scalable than any solution that we are working with today, especially subgraphs. Solana, of course, was never feasible with subgraphs. Nor, yeah. I would want Leo and Ford to give me the latest numbers on that. Yeah, Token API as well is it's a great product, and yeah, I'd love to see more usage of that as well. All the work that Phoenix have been doing there. But yeah, I take the feedback. If there's any specific points that aren't on that, I feel like data services there that is the reason. But we could be better at. I think maybe the challenge here is that we presented once. There's not much to present, so we don't feel the need to go back on IO8 and say that, hey, this service that we can't talk much about outside of the NDA group, it's still being developed. It maybe feels like a non-update, so maybe we could consider a better roadmap page where indexes can look at what is being developed and when they can expect it to come to the indexer community or the graph network. So, for example, what chains are being deployed on the graph, and if it's meeting the eligibility criteria to get indexing rewards, we could mark it accordingly in that page. Same with AMP, we could have tentative timelines for when it will come to the graph network and so on. Would that help? Because I feel like more so than announcing it, I'm not sure if it's easy to follow if people are just attending an IOH from time to time. Open to feedback there. Just a wild thought that maybe it should be just a more interactive page, or a page where we keep track of these milestones and upcoming changes, specifically on the indexer side.
Matthew's just saying it's not clear what the indexer role would be in the new things that are coming. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, maybe Slim, you can hop in, but I feel like we've been trying to address that in the call. So
yeah, so how the indexer role, I haven't addressed that question directly. More that it will indexers will be core to AMP as well, and we are building AMP within indexes and the graph network in mind. And that's something that the specifics of it, as I said, like we do want to have like a big announcement around it. I will defer to what we are saying tomorrow publicly, and then there will also we will also have sessions in the ND8 group. So on substreams on the network and firehose on the network, that is more specific. And when it comes to indexing rewards, so that is a thought, is to have indexing rewards, some of the indexing rewards going towards substreams. How does it's not as easy with substreams in particular, because you're not syncing a substream. That's merely, well, you I don't need to explain that, but we could have indexing rewards on firehose data and on flat files, and having that available, and then we could have dips and query fees on the substreams themselves. What anyone have any thoughts on that? And it could synergize well with people that are already running the infrastructure. We already have if you're already running an RPC, and you run Firehose, you will be able to tap into that as well, and you can use both the Firehose and your RPC to feed into GraphNode, right? So yeah, as Matthew mentions, Firehose could have a POI mechanism, while substreams could have a similar mechanism to dips, where we cross or we could cross verify. And we're also looking into the protocol economics of the new AMP as well, in a similar fashion. So any thoughts on that, bringing Firehose and substreams on the network and having some of the indexing rewards go towards that? It will also bring a lot more query fees. Yeah, exactly. Wins. And that, I think that one of the big ones that we are coming up to later is the financial viability, and that's where that's some of the things that we want to bring more options to indexes. And we also want, with the index eligibility Oracle, we want to make sure that indexes that are not providing service on the network do not. Let me. There it is. So we are. Oh. Yeah, was trying to pull up the dashboard, but so there's a password on it now. So yeah, with with around 40% of indexes not serving queries on the graph network, we do want to move them off the network or get them to improve their quality of service. So. So, Josh, you bring up a very important point that I really can't wait to talk about later in these sessions about, like, I have some Excel sheets on like indexing versus delegating, and unless you have a big delegation, it really doesn't make sense to be an indexer, or unless you think you can attract a big delegation. From a financial perspective, and that is painful, and I would love to explore some options there with more dynamic delegation, potentially a delegation program, and also on like working with indexes on setting a new standard for what indexing cut should be like. Unlike all other protocols, unlike pure staking, our infrastructure costs does scale with a delegation that we get. So I don't see why we should be defaulting to 10% or 3% or 5%, which is pretty low compared to how much work it is to run an indexer. And not only infrastructure cost scales, but the more subgraphs you have to index, the more chains you need to be on, the more chains fail, the more subgraphs fail. So let's start to wrap up. But yeah, I think this is something that is something we can circle back to and have like a more dedicated session on as well, like on how we can improve the index economics there on other sides. But yeah, there's some initiatives that we are working on the delegation side as well. But the first one coming up is the rewards eligibility oracle, on making sure that indexes that do not serve queries do not get to take a piece of the pie.
Yeah, that's important. I definitely think like a longer conversation about economics of indexing versus delegating could be interesting. It seems like there's some appetite for that. So yeah, definitely worth speaking about that in the next one of these. It's interesting to hear some people's perspectives on like profitability, and how I think pretty much universally for everyone, it might be a more profitable endeavor to delegate. So yeah, would be interesting to have a conversation there for sure. Any final thoughts, Slim, or any final thoughts, anyone in the chat, before we wrap today's conversation? We want to make sure all topics are covered, or any burning questions are answered before we wrap. And of course, this is a session that we're going to do much more of. Slim's done all the hard work of putting together this report, and there's plenty to go through. So, like, rest assured, we're going to circle back on this. But in case anyone has any burning questions, before we wrap today, I'm very keen to get that covered off. And same for you, Slim, as well, if you want to share anything before we wrap.
Not in particular. I'll be making sure to follow up on the feedback we got here, also on the call and previously. So see if we can improve on well, today I guess we covered some on the communication and roadmap, and see if we can how we can improve it. Would love to get some feedback on suggestions here as well, as we have them.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, all right. Well, if anyone has any burning questions or thoughts, chuck them in the chat. If not, then I'm going to say a special thank you to Slim for all the hard work for putting together this report and going through it. We really do appreciate you, Slim. You've been going above and beyond these past couple of weeks with IOH, and I'm very much grateful for you. You're a legend. And thank you to everyone here for joining and engaging in today's conversation as well. We very much do appreciate it. And all of your comments, considerations, like we want to make sure that we get them handled. So appreciate everyone being vocal. And yeah, exactly. You're a legend, Slim. We love Slim. Slim for president. Let's go. Yeah, we do appreciate Slim and each and every one of you. So thank you so much, guys, for sticking around. This was a great conversation, and as Slim said, we'll be back next week, same time, to talk rewards rewards eligibility Oracle. Wow, that is a mouthful. REO for short. There you go. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you again same time next week. Take care. Bye.